All right, welcome to the Faithful Five podcast. My name is Tom Consumo, and I am happy to have Tony Hayden Jr., who is the principal and CEO of McGuire Hayden Real Estate. Tony, thanks for joining us
Hey,
today.
Tom. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us, let's kick off with a little bit background on yourself, business, family, little recap.
Yeah, sure. So I'm almost 50. We're talking about being old. So I think I can play in the senior golf tournament now. So I guess I'm officially old also. And but I don't feel that old, thankfully. So I got started in the real estate business right after college. I went to on a basketball scholarship to Mount St. Mary's. They're like a small Division I school down in Maryland. And I went to St. Joe's Prep locally here in Philly. And then I went. So the only reason I'm pointing that out about the Mount is that's why I chose there was to play basketball there. But wasn't good enough to play professionally after college. So came home and went right to work in the family business. My dad had recently started like a small brokerage company called Hayden Real Estate at the time. And so I went to work for him. It was my first job. I went to work for my dad in July 1st was my first day on the job after I took 2 months off after graduating.
You're running right into the first question about
Yeah.
when did faith really start playing a role in your life, and was something did it something trigger it, like the financial? I mean, I know you always kind of had the faith, seeds of faith, but was tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about
so my own
that
personal
process.
story is it's interesting. It's like the things you get led to randomly was that again, I went to Mount St. Mary's just because I wanted to play basketball there. They had a legendary basketball coach who's, probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's like maybe the fifth winningest coach ever in college basketball. His name is Jim Fallon. He wore a bow tie. He was kind of a famous basketball coach. So that's the reason I went there. I wanted to play basketball for him there. But they also have a seminary, a Catholic seminary on campus at Mount St. Mary. So it was really in college that, it didn't happen to me, thankfully by, like you said, things like, tragedy or anything like that. I think um, it was kind of like I think it's similar to now, really. Like you're reading a lot about people converting to the Catholic faith now. And I think it's because of like, people want that, structure and security in their life. And 99, like John Paul II had just come to like, I think the Baltimore, DC area. He may have been passed through Philadelphia at the time in like the late 90s time frame, and Mother Teresa had visited Mount St. Mary. So to me, I was like really struck by the beauty of the Catholic faith and the people that I met. Um, but it probably wasn't until like my junior year about that. So I was like, probably around 21 years old at the time, that I fell in love with the faith. Um, and um, and then, but I came up as, in this area, like in where we live in Philly, there's so many good examples. There's so many just good examples just in my own family too of people that I looked up to. My cousin Yusmita, who and my uncle Yus Wolfington, just great people that like you want to be like, So like that was um, I think all those people, my own parents, it was people that were like the faith was important to them, and that's who I wanted to be like, For me, I think mostly like if I look back on it, it's like I was deeply attracted to the positive disciplines of Catholicism, things like going to daily mass, you know, um, like the life of prayer, praying the rosary, those things like were attracted to me. And I think maybe because I was an athlete that I I was already sort of I was sort of used I understood that like you kind of you got out of something what you put into it. You know what I mean?
So talk a little bit about you touched on it, people who were influential in your life that kind of brought the faith a little bit more alive, whether it was in their family life or business life, or touch a little bit on people that influenced you from a faith
Yeah, no,
standpoint.
it was interesting at Mount St. Mary's, especially like this is still, I think it's like this to this day that they are I think they're the biggest seminary in the country. So like, and they get a lot of guys from like the Midwest, like just really wholesome, good guys. We had like a guy that was, kind of like a Father Rob person who, he does that ministry at Villanova. Then we had seminarians that did that at our school. So like we would be on the road and you know, the guy would say, "Hey, I'm going to daily mass tomorrow. Do you want to come?" And so I went a few times. Like that's just like positive like invitation, that people had invited me to try that. But again, like I said, I had known already that I knew a lot of people in my own family that took their faith seriously. So I think I had an openness. I had an openness to it, and um, that I was looking forward to. Um, that I definitely I wanted that, but when I was that age, and yeah, and so I think I definitely as I think back on it, I think the those positive people, and that's the nice thing about we talk about it all the time that like sometimes you don't even know the impact that you're having on people just by showing up every day, just by living your faith every day. Because like I'm sure like my Uncle Use Wolfington, who was like my dad's best friend. He was just living his life, but he didn't know that he was already having this sort of big impact on me because I could look up to him. He was someone who was really successful, had a big family, was a happy person, and those were things that I wanted too. I had a lot. I had a really. I've been blessed with a lot of like real. I was even just thinking about. I've been really blessed with like a lot of positive role models in my life. That like the Catholic faith, their faith meant a lot to them. And again, like everyone, like they had their own faults and foibles, but at the end of the day, like it mattered to them, and that's the people that kind of like raised me.
Yeah, I love how you say raise me. So fast forward a little and just touch on briefly. Uh, you had a bunch of kids, you were running a company, you have a lot of personal obligations, all the things that men deal with all the time.
Yeah.
How did that the faith start to play a role in how it shaped you and how you were a parent and a husband and a father?
No, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. We go to that men's group on Tuesdays, and it's something we talked about recently at that you know, to me, like something I've really learned a lot about even over the last 30 years is you know, more of like I would say like, and a lot of people don't even know about this, like the Catholic Church is sort of I'm trying to think of how to say it, like more of its like um tradition of prayer, and something I've learned is just like you're not always going to have all the answers. So it's like to me, like that's the real power of Eucharistic adoration, especially. Like that's what I mean. Like, this idea of just like you're just surrendering to God, all of these things that because you can't control it all. That's like that is the like that's the part of it that it's sort of, I think brings you to your knees because when you have five kids, when you have work, when you have friends, when you have all these things that you want to try and keep up on, you just can't. And so there is really no other way that makes sense, I think, than just to give it over. Like you have to, it's like this like letting go. And to me, like that has been um so good, I think. That the
And
Catholic
you
Church
learn
has
that,
almost like a
right?
daily
Yeah.
daily reminders of that. You know what I mean? And then you're not really living that egocentric life either. Which can easily get away from you. It's almost like it can get away from like within a day if you're not connected to that. So that's I love that about Catholicism that it gives you sort of things like the rosary, things like Eucharistic adoration, things like daily mass that it's like this unloading, like just like you can just say, if you go to mass, you can just, you put your family on the altar, you put your work concerns on the altar, and you just sort of give it to God, and then you let you let Him work it out. You know what I mean? And that's um but that's hard. That is like to me, that's like so much easier said than done. Like I want to be there to me, that's like the daily struggle. I want to be there so much of like not living with expectation so much, where it's like just this attitude of like, I'm reporting for duty today. So that's like the daily offering. I'm just reporting for duty.
We all face the same challenges. What do you think is the biggest obstacle? We are seeing, especially in younger men, more younger men coming to the faith. But
Yeah.
from your personal chair, what do you think is the biggest obstacle for men to practice their faith? You know?
Well, I think that that's a good question. I mean, because you're right. I do maybe because it's like self-inflicted. I had 5 kids. I had um, I had a lot of uh, I had a lot of worries, just normal worries, and so like the idea of letting go and giving that over to God to me was like, man, that feels good to do that. You know what I mean? Um, like I would be, I feel like I'd be like a wreck if I had to live it any other way. You know what I mean? You would just be worrying around the clock, about everything all the time. And yeah, like but if you can just give it over to God and just say, like, this is you. Like you created me. This is like, then because you're right, there are a lot of challenges out there for men.
How about some myths? Myths about faith, or, I often say, well, if you're living the faith, it's boring or dull, or
Yeah.
you have to follow too many rules, go to church, that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, and you get that a lot, and it's like a lot of times it's funny, like the caricature that the world presents, like in like if you just think of like a sitcom of like a person like practicing their faith, um, it would be it'd be so ridiculous if that's what it was that nobody would want to do it. You know what I mean? So I always tell people, I'm like just go try it. Just try to sit quietly with God by yourself and see if you're not impacted. You know what I mean? And that to me is the truth of it. But you're right. That is to me like that's probably been forever. But that's like the big thing we wrestle with is just like the caricature that's out there of what the Catholic faith is. Do you know what I mean? Like just all these rules and stuff. Like as you know, like once you start practicing your faith, you don't even think about the rules anymore. You know what I mean?
And you
And
just described the freedom that surrendering gives to
I
you.
never
Like
even
night and day.
like a good example if someone is like it's like St. Paul talks about like with like the world of laws, like me and you aren't like tempted to go like take $20 out of someone's pocket, So it's like I don't think people realize that a lot that they have this view that like there's an obsession almost with rules, and that is the opposite of what you should be doing. I think that it's really more about this daily surrender.
Final question. 30-year-old guy either just got married or just had a baby, tip or two for
I
him
know. I think
channeling
about
the
these
faith.
guys a lot, and I'm sure you do too when you see young families in church because you know how hard it is. Like I was just at another wedding for a younger person, and the guy was joking about how they were like he's probably 30 years old or something like that. So he was like riding his bike to get bubble gum at the store and in like 08, 09, and I was like, damn, I was like worried I was going to lose my house in 08, 09 with I had five children then too in that time. So uh I guess my advice would be because I think about that a lot. What advice would you even give yourself at the time if you could go back and get in a time machine? And I think it would be this. It would be, to really intentionally not worry, um, to actually, to think of yourself like, you know, uh, like that great book by Dickens, Great Expectations, where he thought he had this inheritance that he had that you do that's the thing. That's what I mean by that image of me being baptized when my parents were baptizing me was that if you can kind of live that way that you even if you're not rich or you're poor whatever it's like you have this inheritance that's yours. Do you know what I mean? And like we really like I believe that. Like and so um to me that's what I would say to that person that and obviously like I think that's what I would tell myself is just like intentionally don't worry, like give it over to God completely. Do you know what I mean? And then let God sort it all out, because there's a great line if you ever seen the movie The Tree of Life, Brad Pitt's in it. It's like it's kind of a strange movie, but it's really about the life of faith, and it's like they have a line at the end of the movie that one day you will fall down and weep because you'll everything will be made clear to you. And I believe that. Like when you die and one day you'll fall down and it's like, oh, like that's why that happened. And like it all makes sense. And you can't really get that in the moment today. Um, but I think in faith you can. You can say in faith, I know that I know I can't see it clearly right now, but I'm going to see it clearly at some point. You know what I mean? And so to give that advice to that 30-year-old with who's starting out with kids and a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, I would say really try to intentionally not worry, and that's easier said than done. Like I said, it's incredibly easier said than done. I just got done playing. I played my first round of golf and I played like incredible. And I said something to the guy I was playing with, and I said, I think I have no expectations. And I thought, and it was something clicked in my head. I was like, man, that is the right way to live your life, where you're like, I wasn't gripping the club tightly. I wasn't, I was more, like you said, like I said earlier, I think I was just more free. Those words just came to me. Um, I'm playing without any expectations. And I think that if you can do that in the spiritual life, like I said, here I am, I'm reporting for duty. Here I am, Lord, I come to do your will. I'm just going to show up for this. I'm going to surrender it all to God and see what happens, knowing that I believe that. Like I said with the baptism scene, I believe that God loves me. So it's like, I don't have to worry about it. So I think that would be the advice that I would give. And it's really hard. So I'm not, I'm talking about something that I daily struggle with, but I think it's a positive goal to have.
But you've made progress and you're 50 years old. That 30-year-old, it's not going to happen
Well,
overnight,
yeah, that's
right?
why I think like yeah, I went to St. Joe's Prep, and that was one of the big things that I learned there was like the Jesuit spirituality is this idea of the daily examination of conscience. And now, like to me as an adult, I understand that now. I almost didn't when they were telling me about it in high school. I definitely didn't understand it. That Ignatius, he would tell the missionaries, and like he would say to them, um, start your examination of conscience with gratitude. And so he always said to them, start it with gratitude. Do not start with your sins. So he never said to them like, don't do your moral inventory first. Do your gratitude list first every night. And they would do it. The missionaries would do it twice a day. They do it at midday, and they would do it at the end of the day. And now I understand what the purpose of that is. It's like then you're able to go to look back. And if you're doing the examination every day, if you're trying to make this list of gratitude of the things you're thankful to God for, then it becomes like something that you can lean on in those moments where you can say, well, he didn't abandon me 10 years ago when I went through X, Y, and Z, so he's not going to abandon me today either, you know?
All right, Tony, thanks for joining me. I
Yeah,
really
Tom, that
appreciate
was a
it.
lot of fun. I appreciate you having me.